Hello and welcome back to the Puncher's Chance podcast, and welcome to the review show where we have a look back at last weekend's boxing. Of course, Moses Itauma. He is... What is he? Tell me. I was going to say it myself, but you know, word. Ben, you're back. What is Moses Itauma?
I can't stretch out anymore now.
Nice to be back on the podcast. Save the podcast from Harry's terrible opinions.
Wow.
Only a win.
Right, now we're back down to 2.
No, really good night to fight, but Moses Itauma, obviously I've been on the hype train for a long time, but he's just so special. And just looking at him, I think our grandfathers probably had the chance to say, I got to watch Muhammad Ali live. Our fathers with Mike Tyson and his rise were like, I got to watch him live. And I really think that we are going to get that same feeling with Moses Itauma. Get to tell our kids we got to see what I think will be Britain's best ever British heavyweight come through and absolutely dominate the division for the next few years. And I think the masses of boxing fans are starting to get behind him now, obviously with these sensational knockouts, and people keep saying, oh yeah, but he hasn't been tested yet. He's in with someone now that should give him rounds, should be dangerous. Absolutely dominated Jermaine Franklin from the first bell to the last with that sensational knockout. And yeah, I think British fans really need to get behind him now, like they've done in the past with someone like Anthony Joshua, like they've done with Tyson Fury, because this kid at 21 years old is going right to the very top, and I think there's only one name at the moment in the heavyweight division that would test him.
Yeah, I know which name you mean, and I think
we can.
No, I think you're bang on when you say that people keep saying he needs to be tested.
Yeah.
But he has been. They've given him the opponents that should test him, and if they don't test him, that's a test in itself that he's passed with flying colours. Jermaine Franklin, I think you say the boxing world is starting to give him his plaudits now, because someone like Jermaine Franklin is a fighter that, like you say, shouldn't be getting stopped. Anthony Joshua couldn't stop him, for example. So
he struggled against
now
him.
that people have seen that, and it was textbook. And I think you could say partly matchmaking wise, I think he's the perfect opponent for Itauma, in terms of he's a reasonably stationary target whose first form of defense is his toughness, and against a fighter with the elite movement and the shot arsenal that Itauma has, then you'd say he's the perfect opponent.
That's exactly it.
But he still had to do the business, and he done it.
That's exactly it, though. Itauma, just the speed of him, the way he moves around the ring is just incredible. And for someone who, when you look at him, comparing him to like Dubois and Anthony Joshua, when you look at him, you wouldn't think he's that like sort of heavy and all.
Do you know what though? I thought he looked. I don't know about you guys. I thought he looked quite big in the ring on Saturday. He's getting comparatively to previous fights, where you look at him and you go, like, hang on, this is like, it looks like when Usyk gets in with heavyweight, so like, this is a cruiserweight in there. Whereas now, I think he at least looks to the eye.
He's growing
like
into it,
yeah,
like any sort of 21, early 20s up into your late 20s.
I haven't yet. I'm still waiting for my...
I haven't grown in about 20 years.
Yeah, you filled out at 12, didn't you?
Yeah.
No,
I hit my
know
heavyweight peak at about 12, 13.
No, but like Ben touched on, he is, at the moment, he's on track to being probably a generational talent, and someone that's and he's 21. He could be, dominating the heavyweight division for the next 10, 15 years if he wanted to, and I feel like it's all about activity now for him. It's all about getting the right fights at the right time and moving and keeping building, because in a way, I did think on Saturday night, I'd said this last week, that it was a little bit of a backward step fighting Jermaine Franklin. If you go and basing it off losing to Dillian White, and then the way that Itauma beat Dillian White, and then he's fought Franklin, I thought it was a little bit of a backward step. But now he's on that upward trajectory. You just need to keep on fighting people that, are dropping down in the heavyweight division. And I'm not being funny. There's so many fights out there for him, but there's not, the fighters that he should be fighting next are all busy. And then you're like, what do you do now? Do you roll the dice and gamble someone who's in the top 4? Or do you keep fighting someone on the similar level to Jermaine Franklin that, we can advertise as he's going to test him, he's going to give him rounds? Or are we going to play a waiting game?
I don't think you necessarily need to rush him at 21. He's got such a long career ahead of him, and like you said, the heavyweight division at the moment feels tied up, and it feels like loose ends across the division that needs to be sort of settled. And I think you'll sort of see a clear out of the likes of Usyk, AJ, Fury before they maybe go, right, let's unleash him fully and let him... because I don't know if you want to use him to clear out those names or just build him ready for when those names are gone. So you've already got the next star in waiting that you know is going to carry the heavyweight, because we all know when the heavyweight division's thriving, the sport as a whole is at its best. So when you know you've got a solid star for the next 10, 15 years that can be right to the top and, you know, be entertaining for fans to watch. And it's just like we said, considering the size of him as well and the speed and the movement, it's not just the great knockouts that you see in, but it's the technical ability as well to go with it. He doesn't just stand there and throw big haymakers and it's a hit and hope. It's very calculated, the way he's in and out of range constantly. And he's so thoughtful with his work, and the way he sort of sets, even that shot on Saturday, the way he just sort of leans in, brings Franklin onto him, and he's straight through with that uppercut. So it was like one of those big, massive shots that he had loaded, but it was a thought through shot, not just one through pure luck. But yeah, I think the interesting thing is what is next for him. I think there's boxing fans out there that go, let's just give him Usyk now, and because they'll think that's the only person that could test him. And to be honest, in my opinion, I think it is probably the only heavyweight at the moment, because Usyk is at such a skill level, and in terms of his movement, I think is the only thing that could probably test Moses Itauma. But I don't think it's a fight that we need to see.
Thoughts on the stoppage? Franklin's corner was obviously sort of complaining about it.
How can you complain?
Exactly.
I think the reason they're complaining about it is because Franklin felt he was going to get up by the count of 10 and he wasn't given the opportunity. But from the ref's perspective, I can absolutely see why. Because let's be real, that shot, that uppercut, the little step back, he knocked him unconscious on his feet. And then, because like you said, he's that intelligent fighter and he's planning, he already had the next shot lined up. He switched his feet and he was going to hit him with that lead shot. And in the end, it just kind of was a bit of a knock him over kind of thing, like a poke him over. It was almost like a cartoon. But for the referee to see him out on his feet and another shot landed, that's when I think that's where a referee is placed to say, no, this has had its time. So I can see why, like, no one can tell him what he felt. And I'm sure he felt like he could get back up. But this is a man that's never hit the ground before. And he's just hit the ground for the second time in a fight, unconscious on his feet. I think for me, it was an absolutely fine stoppage.
If somehow he gets back up, he's
the same
finished.
thing happens. Yeah.
He gets badly hurt then.
He'll be looking back at it in 40, 50 years' time, and he'll be thanking that referee.
But the thing is,
probably next week.
Franklin as well, to give him a huge amount of props. You know, that third round, I think it was, when he got caught with the lead hook on top of the head, which is a lovely little chopping shot, and just, it was a bit of a flash knockdown. But how many people have we seen get flash knockdown like that, particularly by somebody like Moses Itauma, and it just unravels. Rightfully so. And he was able to kind of stabilise the ship for a round or two, but the writings were on the wall that he was going to find another shot at some point and get him out there. And to kind of jump back to what you were saying about, you know, Usyk and the rest of the heavyweight division, I remember I was sat on Sunday morning and I had a coffee and I was just thinking about the fight, and I thought, who else in the heavyweight division does that to Jermaine Franklin? And the answer is nobody. I don't think Fabio Wardley is able to pick him apart in the same way. I think he's got the power to. I don't know if he's got the skill to. I don't think Joseph Parker does that to him. Usyk causes him a whole different host of problems. I don't think Jermaine Franklin almost touches Usyk, but he doesn't do that to Jermaine Franklin. So from that point of view, like you say, to suggest that there is no one in the heavyweight division that could cause Moses Itauma too many problems outside of Alexander Usyk, I can see where you're coming from. But equally, I agree with you that doesn't mean you make the Usyk fight now. I think there's like you say, we've got this kind of this kind of build-up of traffic where we had, 2024 was the year of the heavyweights, right? We saw him on Riyadh season, week in, week out. Turkey loves a heavyweight. We saw so many great fights. And I think now we're sort of seeing the aftermath of that a little bit, where 2025 was a pretty poor year for heavyweights. There was a number of top heavyweights, Parker, Caballel, that struggled to get as many fights as they had done the year prior. And I think we're seeing the aftermath of that. So like you say, clear the way, continue to tick boxes. Jermaine Franklin ticked a box. Can he still hurt them if they're durable as heck? Of course he can. What's next? Can he hurt them if they are capable of hurting him also? And that's where I think the next opponent comes in. It's somebody that will be able to absorb enough damage, but actually poses a genuine threat to Moses Itauma themselves, where we will see him come into his own. And I think, like you said, he's smart. He will answer those questions. He's so defensively minded, even when he's on the attack. But who is that?
It's a good thing that you mentioned the Usyk fight, because non-boxing fans are probably going to watch that on Saturday and go, right, who's the king of the heavyweight division? Give him next. And I just think with Itauma, there's so many, like we touched on it, all the heavyweights of the moment seem to have fights. You know, Dubois, Wardley, phenomenal fight. Them two are up. You know, even when you look domestically at like Fraser Clark, Lawrence Okoli, they've got fights upcoming. And then you're like, who can he fight? And then people are rolling out the names of Martin Bakole. You know, we haven't heard from him in a long time. Is he, you know, I'm not being funny, we could see him in the next fight and he could look completely different to what he looked like against Parker. You know, Zhilei Zhang, we haven't heard much on. You know, he was meant to fight Dubois, and obviously Dubois is fighting Wardley now. So there's two fights there. The fight I'm interested in for Itauma, and I would like to see if he is to fight in July in a stadium fight, is him against Murat Gassiev.
Yeah, I think and to be fair, Gassiev's promoters have sort of said he's ready,
and
I get
sense, because where Gassiev is, you know, how the hell he is where he is, mind, is, you know, unbelievable. But if Itauma could then beat Gassiev and do it in the same sort of fashion that he did against Franklin, then you're looking at it going, hang on a minute, do we really have to wait?
But that might be getting a little bit carried away. This is the WBA world champion you're talking about in Murat Gassiev. I think you've got to show him an ounce of he's the WBA champion.
What, full?
Is he not?
No, surely not.
He is. He's the out and out champion. Yeah.
Yes, the one belt that Usyk doesn't.
And he's the WBO he hasn't got for Wardley as well.
Oh, yeah,
I swear he's the WBA champion against.
Because if he is, then give Itauma Gassiev
or certainly in a world where Usyk's fighting Rico Verhoeven, and let's be real, he's not going to be lining up to fight Murat Gassiev anytime soon. No. He will be the WBA champion. I think.
But give Gassiev Itauma.
I agree. That's a great fight.
It's a good watch.
I think it's a really, really good fight. I'd be maybe inclined to say I want to see one more beforehand.
That's the thing, though. There's no one around that is at the similar level to what Franklin is, that isn't fighting.
Yeah, Gassiev's got the regular version of the WBA belt.
Oh, okay, so it is the interim, yeah.
So give him.
Itauma batters him.
I think so, but I think
that's it. That's the fight to make next.
I think if
you're looking at, you know,
I think
elevating him even more.
I think it's a fight to make. I don't think it's the fight.
Obviously, for some reason, they've put Hrgovic and Dave Allen together.
Bonkers.
Lawrence and Coley's got a fight coming up.
Tony Yoka in Paris,
a couple of weeks' time.
I think a Coley would have been a decent one, but
especially with the rankings that Coley
16 in the gym. So
I'm not being funny, mind. That could be it, because end of April, middle of July, there's a period there.
I think with the Dave Allen Hrgovic fight's only like a week or two after that. So if you're talking fights, it's not particularly. Yeah. I think, like I said, I want somebody where you feel Itauma, regardless of what work he can do, is in a genuine threat to somebody. So someone like Martin Bakole, we know Martin Bakole can hurt a man. That much we do know. And I think with a full camp as well, I think he can absorb some damage in the way that he maybe couldn't against Joseph Parker. I think Zhilei Zhang, again, I mean, don't get me wrong, he can hurt a man. Yeah. If you're wanting a test of chin, a test of, that, but I think speed-wise,
trying to think,
Moses Itauma is running rings around Zhilei Zhang. So from that point, I think when you look at Hrgovic, he was the fight I felt that was the making of Daniel Dubois in terms of when you would go, yeah, this guy is ready. And without that fight, that AJ fight doesn't happen the way it happened. So I think if you wait a little bit longer to get Filip Hrgovic, I think that's somebody that we've seen. He can take it on the chin, but also if he catches hold of you, then you might be. I mean, any heavyweight catches hold of you, you'll know about it. But I think that fight has all the hallmarks. If he gets through Dave, I mean, if he loses to Dave Allen, then and, who knows what happens.
Calls it a day. Talk about the Dubois journey. Jarrell Miller, that fight was going the way that all of us wasn't expecting, with Miller winning on a points and then Dubois had to dig deep. Is a Miller the sort of fighter that Itauma should be fighting next?
Too similar to Franklin.
You reckon?
It's the same box. It's the same box being ticked.
Good
That's the big question
now.
Is what's next for Moses Itauma? Do you think there's any scope for a potential fight with Daniel Dubois?
If he beats Wardley,
because I don't think they do Wardley and Itauma, obviously.
No, not at the moment.
Yeah, I think there is. I think
so. If Dubois loses to Wardley, you give Dubois Itauma.
No, if Dubois beats Wardley,
I think
for
if
the world
Dubois
title,
beats
you do
Wardley.
Itauma Wardley.
Yeah, I agree.
Title.
Yeah, but he was really.
I agree. And
or
I
you
think
could do a passing of the torch type fight with the winner of AJ and Tyson Fury.
You could, but I
don't think it happens.
don't think it, again. Yeah, I don't think it happens. I don't know. There's so many fights, and I think the important thing is, I think we're talking about all of these fights, and all of them are great fights. But the important thing is they don't all have to be the next fight. He can have one between Wardley and Dubois. I don't know. There's danger to that always. Every time you kind of have a warm up fight, there's a risk that it goes wrong. But I think he's at a stage of his career where, like you say, the more lessons he learns, the more questions he's asked now, the more it will pay dividends later on in his career. So lots of exciting things to happen there. But
I think we're forgetting how good this card.
It was
this card was. Yeah,
it was the card we've kind of all been waiting for, wasn't it? In many ways. This year,
God knows how many weeks delayed, like 2 months. Yeah,
exactly. So I think, and you can see why, with the undercard it was and the ticket sales, etc., why they perhaps chose to delay it the way they did.
Yeah.
Because it was a great night of boxing.
Well, where do we start? I think that's the question.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the card. For me,
get the card up.
I think maybe Brad Paul's beating Shakiel Thompson.
Phenomenal.
What a win.
It's a brilliant win, and I couldn't be happier for him. And I knew people always say this, but it couldn't have happened to a nicer bloke. I've been fortunate enough to meet him on a couple of occasions at press conference and stuff, and he's absolutely
We literally
lovely.
had him 3 minutes for like a 3 minute period. He was like, go on then.
And I was actually in Cornwall this weekend, so I had that extra sense of pride watching him in the hometown. He's from the same neck of the woods as my granddad.
It's got context to it though, hasn't it? The story of Brad Paul's, because he was fighting on the small horse scene. Let's not forget, he was, after losing, what was it, to Denzel Bentley, he went to Torquay, fought on in that card down there, and then he was meant to be fighting in the galleries in Bristol, again on a small hall, and when you go from that, you can start off at small hall and then move up, but coming back down is almost like, right, you've got to make a decision now of whether to pack it in, because you're not going to make the same amount as you were fighting on, the Queensbury shows that he was on a consistent basis. And for him to go and fight Shakiel Thompson, who is, I'm not being funny, a lot of people had him, favourites and quite heavy favourites in that fight. And, and you watch the fight and the way it was playing out, you can go, this is why. And then just for Brad Paul's to find that one shot where it was all going against him, like you said, it's probably, if we're speaking at the end of the year and you're talking about moments of 2026, that's going to be right up there because of just the story of where he was to where he is now, where he's back in the limelight now. He's back on a Queensbury DAZN shows, co-main eventing, and I think, like you said, it couldn't have happened to a nicer person. And, for him now, he's in that moment now of what do you do with him next?
Well, when you say what to do with him next, Shakiel Thompson held the rank of number 3 in the IBF rankings. And then you look at I can't remember who number 2 is, but number 1 is vacant, and the champion Janibek isn't fighting anytime soon because of his own problems, and the IBF haven't stripped him. But we know what the IBF, how the IBF feel about a paper champion. So you very much could be looking at a world where Brad Paul's is one fight away from fighting for a world title,
which is crazy.
And like you say, the character and the humility it takes to step away from back to back to back main events on DAZN, your name, beating Heaney, beating drawing with Heaney, and then unfortunately losing to Bentley, who is a world title level fighter.
Yeah.
To go from that to fighting in Torquay, to accepting a fight in a car park in Bristol, to have that, turn it around and win in the fashion he has, it's just a nice story, isn't it? It really is.
You could write a book.
And I don't think it was just a lucky shot.
No.
Like that. It was, like you said, after the fight, it was sticking to that game plan that the right hand was getting through a couple of times, and he just caught it that flush, and he had the skill and the ability to finish off a fight as well, which he's shown in the past. And yeah, it's just a really good story, and he's had no luck really over considering his loss come against Denzel Bentley in that British title fight, and he's just sort of been thrown to the side after that. So it was really nice, as much as it's obviously not great for Shakiel Thompson, who'd be disappointed, I think, to let that slip in that moment, considering he was probably quite out in front on the scorecards. But yeah, it's a great story, and the fact that he could be looking at a world title shot. Hopefully they can get him, or at least get him in line for something really big next now, because I think he's earned it.
Yeah, absolutely. Willy Hutchinson, Ezra Taylor was a fight, again, that in the build-up to it, it was splitting heads. It was a difficult one to call. Ezra Taylor's got to where he's gotten without any real blemishes on his record, and Willy Hutchinson's been in some great fights. We're obviously part of that kind of Riyadh season era, and it proved levels, I think, in that one. We said, I think, in the preview, albeit I think I went for Ezra Taylor, if I remember correctly.
I did watch that back this morning. You did, yeah. Just to make sure.
That narrow loss to Boatsi was playing in my mind, because Boatsi's a great fighter, and I was thinking, that was a good fight. And obviously the wins he picked up as well. I was thinking, there was something, I think there was something in me that wanted to, or that was doubting my brain, and that's why. Because I think skill-wise, he barely left second gear, and Ezra Taylor just didn't have the answers to the question of Willy.
What's your thoughts on... I want to focus on the build-up to this fight, because the fight was, a breeze for Hutchinson in a way. Simon Jordan, what was it, Thursday after the press conference, is, listen, we're in the media world, and we have to ask questions of fighters. That's not the sort of question to be asking a person, is it, before they fight? I think you're going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's not really a question. It's just a statement. It's Simon Jordan, isn't it? That's his thing. He plays up as I'm this hard, like I'll to the line, I'll deliver it, but there's a time and a place.
Exactly.
And a fight week for a fighter's not.
You don't do that though when a fighter's making weight and has got a big fight coming up that, a lot of people add a 50-50 and all that. But yeah, I just think Willy Hutchinson's at that point now in his career where I don't think he needs to stop proving people wrong. I think he's there now, and I think people need to understand that he's actually a decent fighter, and I think there's definitely a bright future ahead for him. And that Boatsi fight is an interesting one. Running, I don't know what Boatsi's doing at the moment.
No. I think the best version of Willy Hutchinson, like you've seen on Saturday, is fringe world title level, but you've seen in that first fight with Boatsi that when you get into that upper level and world title challengers, and Boatsi himself is probably, on the tipping point of that, considering his fight with Callum Smith, and hasn't really gone above that level since. I don't think Willy Hutchinson wins unless it's a favourable fight. I don't think he beats some of the top names in the light heavyweight division. Yeah,
I was just having a look there, and obviously Benavidez, A, moved up to cruiserweight, and B, is in a different stratosphere. Morel and Smith are obviously fighting.
Yeah. Loser of that?
Again, he's lost to Boatsi, who lost to... I don't think you fight the loser of that, because I don't think it pays... Those are two world-level fighters that you're not really getting a world-level payday. So I think... I know what you mean. It's difficult.
He's good. He's very skillful. But the thing I think lets him down is maybe a bit of physicality and the punch power. And I think we've seen in the Boatsi fight, he couldn't keep Boatsi's pressure off him, and he'd get dropped twice in that fight. I think with the body shots, I think that's just what will leave him down a bit of that physicality. And I think they could run the rematch back with Boatsy. I think it'd be helpful for Boatsy as well, I think, in terms of, but yeah, I see Boatsy winning that one again.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like you say, it's just the level he's at. But a performance like that against what I think in retrospect was maybe a slightly one-dimensional Ezra Taylor, maybe doesn't have the legs on it. The other fight you could make maybe at that level would be Ben Whittaker.
Yeah,
I think would be a really interesting fight.
I'd love to watch that fight.
Obviously Ben now under a new trainer is in Andy Lee is showing more power, is showing more spite, not fought as often enough as we'd want him to. But Willy's hard. I think that's going to be a good fight to make for fans and for Whittaker as well.
So childish.
Well, I don't see the problem. He is.
It'd make for a good fight week build up as well.
Yes. A good back and forth.
Ben and Willy going at it from the right up to fight week.
Yeah, no, I just think it'd be good. We'll have to wait and see if we get that one. And Ben Whittaker's due to fight fairly soon. Unnamed opponent, I think. We got to just compose ourselves there.
Jesus, God's sake.
But yeah, it'd be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Nathan Heaney, Jerome Warburton is one that we've got a little bit of
no bias.
Bit of a fan for. And Joe, I'm happy for Jerome because he's had a couple tough fights. Obviously, Conway was a tough fight, and he's always seemingly taking tough fights, and he's always there or thereabouts. Whether he comes on the good or the bad side of it. And Nathan Heaney's a fan favourite for so many reasons, and it's a shame that it ended. That fight has gone the way it has, and his last few performances have gone the way they have. Perhaps again, signs of maybe being a touch too one-dimensional. But let's be real, he makes up for it in every other facet. He is
Delilah and all that.
Yeah, the walkout, the delivering of the tickets, everything he does is wonderful, and he deserves all the support he's had. But Jerome was really, really good.
Yeah, it'd be nice I think Heaney said after the fight he's going to plan to have one more fight back in Stoke, just to have that sort of home crowd and a goodbye, which I think he deserves. The ring walk was brilliant, but it was a bit of a shame to see the boos at the end. I know obviously he had big crowd and big support in there, Nathan Heaney, but I felt like Jerome Warburton won the fight pretty clearly in the end, and I think it started off quite difficult for him. It was a bit of a back and forth in the early rounds, and I thought Heaney's experience maybe was going to get the better, but Warburton, once he stepped off and created that bit of space and almost fought on the back foot, made it really difficult for Heaney. And I think, like you said, that sort of one-dimensional style of fighting and not really being able to cut the ring off effectively and get his shots off as effectively in the early rounds. Warburton, I felt, done very well, and he's taken some very tough fights, and we know fighters from Wales tend to have to pull off some spectacular performances to really catch the eye. So hopefully a win there will give him another big opportunity now going forward. It'd be interesting to see what they offer him up next, and maybe he gets another crack at a British title. Maybe George Liddard has got.
I was thinking.
I think George Liddard's the British champion. Jimmy Sains.
I think Jimmy Sains
is the English champion. So if you could maybe make a fight for that for the British,
you're cool.
Or now he's got that WBA ranking. An all Welsh fight against Willie Heaney.
He's got fight news coming soon. Apparently.
Be a good one to watch. I don't think it happens, but it'd certainly be a good one to watch.
The thing is, though, Ben touched on it for the Welsh fighters. It was sort of the theme of the weekend that Carvel Crocker, for example, had to go away to win his title that he won, and so did Warburton. And Warburton has been, I think for him, it's all about waiting for that right moment. And he fought Kieran Conway, after, I want to say he won the Welsh title, didn't he, in Cardiff? And then, went back on like the small horse 6-rounders and all that, just waiting and waiting and waiting. Fought Kieran Conway, got stopped, had another sort of 6 or 8-rounder, whatever it was, and then came into this fight. And for some people, I think they probably wrote him off for it. And for him to put in the performance, like Ben said, it was started off competitive the first couple of rounds. And then as soon as you get 5-6, you're thinking, oh my God, Warburton's breezing this. And you start to think to yourself, fair play, like it must have been a really, really bad off night when he fought Kieran Conway. To be from that fighter to what he was on Saturday night looked completely different.
I don't know. I think style-wise, I think Nathan Heaney as an opponent, he was able to work out a very effective way of beating him. Heaney made it maybe a little bit too easy for him. He didn't effectively cut off the ring at all. But Conway's a quality operator. I think you can see why someone like that might It took Lidard a little while to get Conway out of there.
I'm not being funny. You have your first sort of big time fight and you lose so dramatically against Conway. To then go back and fight on the small horn and then come back.
Really impressive.
It's like fair play. You're going straight back in there against. He literally, as much as it wasn't Stoke, it was Manchester, but it did sound and feel like it was Stoke that evening. And yeah, it was a quality performance, and hopefully now he can kick on with this. And he talked about after the fight that Frank Warren and him need a discussion afterwards, and hopefully those talks have been held, and hopefully he can get signed up to Queensbury, because it could be an exciting future. And what a moment for North Wales boxing,
Yeah. Particularly, with the strength that Queensbury have got in Liverpool, and that neck of the woods. It's, if you're looking at big cities where you can make fights that make sense for North Wales, then Liverpool's right up there. So I think you can see why maybe if they've got another show coming in the M&S Bank with Nick Ball as a kind of as a comeback trail, then
chuck him on there.
Sticking Jerome Warburton on there would make a lot of sense. Liam Davis as well, back on the EBU, European, back on the comeback. He's another good fighter. Like, I think he had a tough night in his loss, but he is good, isn't he? And I think he showed that.
Yeah, he's a talented fighter. That Shabazz Masood fight was from what I can remember, was a really good fight. Masood was very good that night, but yeah, it's almost feels like that rebuilding period at the moment, trying to get back to maybe a big fight like that. But yeah, he's a good watch, Liam Davis. Good to see him back in the wins. That's back-to-back wins now since that defeat, so hopefully he can kick on as well to another big opportunity. But the fight card itself, I thought, from
delivered,
top to bottom, was really, really entertaining. Probably helped with a couple of good knockout stoppage wins, card, and obviously Itauma putting the sort of icing on the cake at the end as well. But yeah, that's going to go down as one of Queensbury's better cards.
Oh, for sure. There was part of me on Saturday as I was starting to watch the fights thinking, what sicko has put a Queensbury card on the same night that the clocks go forward? Whose idea was that? I'm going to be up until 3 a.m. watching this. But dare I even say it was in front of schedule, I think.
Exactly. For a Queensbury show, I couldn't believe the pacing of it. It was like bang, next fight. And
to give them credit where they've maybe got it wrong a couple times, the matchmaking on that show was top notch. Yeah. Everything was competitive, everything was entertaining. There was fights that going into it you didn't know who was going to win it, which seems like it should sometimes be a minimum rather than a good thing, but it is.
It's not a one-off, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll take it. So to sort of come back round, one fight for Itauma if you had to pick next.
Lawrence Okoli.
Nice, I like it. Rankings wise, probably makes the most sense if he gets through Yoka.
Yeah, I can. Murat Gassiev, I wouldn't mind that, or Zhang, but I think Gassiev.
Does the word one? I'm joking. Gassiev. I back it. I'm going Hrgovic. I want someone that can.
You two think that they're going to have a quick turnaround then? So your prediction for Dave Allen knockout?
Hrgovic stops him.
Who's to say that Itauma needs to fight in May?
Yeah,
I think Hrgovic.
I think he's come out and said he wants to fight in July.
Yeah, so that gives Hrgovic what, 3 month turnaround? It's end of this month. 2 month turnaround,
something like that
for the end of July. It gives you a 3 month turnaround for the end of July. Yeah,
April to
July. No, they're fighting end of April, aren't they?
May time, I think.
I thought it was really early, like first week of May.
I know that they're doing a press conference.
Either way, it's nigh on 3 months. Like you say, I don't see him being caused too many problems by Dave Allen, unfortunately.
It makes the most sense, I think, Hrgovic.
Yeah, so I think I'd like to see that. But also, if it's August, is anyone going to be,
They can't get Dillian White back out, can they?
No. It's an interesting one. Realistically, we've done this every time with Moses Itauma, and I don't know.
May 16th.
Okay, so it's a little bit of a turnaround, but I don't know if we've ever correctly picked who Itauma's going to fight next.
No.
And
Do you know
I'd
the
say
one
you'd probably say they're always maybe just a tiny jump below what we predict.
Do you know the one name that we forgot about? Jared Anderson. What's all that about him signing with
Queensbury? Yeah.
That could be the move as well. Like,
are we
send
reading into
Itauma
that?
over to America against Jared Anderson.
Yeah, I can see the logic to that.
Just to
I'm not being funny.
grow
We hardly touched on American fighters that he could fight.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, Anderson, Ruiz Jr.
Yeah. Again, though, I think Ruiz Jr.'s
Past it.
too similar to Franklin in terms of the type of opponent. You know, he's a fairly stationary target that you can move around and
we
will
don't want
absorb
to be
damage.
sending Moses Itauma over to America to fight Andy Ruiz Jr.
No, we've seen that story
We-
before.
yeah,
we've
we've-
watched that film.
Yeah.
Also, quickly one on Americans. Fundora is a cheat code. I'm sorry. Like,
so good.
I know
He's a weight
I know
bully.
he's beatable, but he is huge.
Well, I'm
It
not
just
being
doesn't
funny.
look right. He's the tallest world champion in boxing, and he's a super welterweight. What do you mean?
Mental.
Or a junior
It
middleweight,
says a lot,
as some
mine,
people
with
call it.
when he fought Keith Thurman the first time round, and obviously got stopped in that, and cracking, what was it, 6 rounds and got the stoppage win. Again, people are complaining about that stoppage, and you're thinking, nah, come on, it was one-way traffic, and another phenomenal performance. It's that fight, I think, sort of plays out in my head like how Sam and Ben would go at it with each other.
The struggle to try and get on the
Yeah.
inside. Like,
I mean, the guy,
he can still jab you whilst he's sat
He's
in the corner.
6'5.5".
He is technically cheating in a way, but it's not cheating, is he?
He makes the weight. Yeah, it's
exactly.
mental. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
He's fun. He's just a fun. I couldn't believe when I saw I think it was Ring Magazine put it out when they said it was the list of the tallest world champions, and having a junior middleweight at number 1
It's bonkers.
is wrong. But fair play to him. He's really good, and
So long as
you know,
he
this
keeps
interesting-
making the weight, as his career goes on now,
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
interesting to see.
interesting fights.
If
There's
that
also
can
the other
carry
thing I
on.
don't know if you saw Xander Zayas fighting Boots Ennis.
That's a good fight.
Yeah, I think that's youngest unified male champion in Xander Zayas, if I'm not mistaken. And
He's thrown
Boots
all the
Ennis
facts
is
out today.
First
Boots Ennis
show
is a
with-
top
With
fighter.
top rank as well on the
So,
zone.
yes,
Eddie
of course.
Hearn and Bob Arum working together.
Yeah, there you go.
It
Who'd
would have
have thunk
thought.
it?
2026, there we go.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. I think, again, another good weekend, a busy weekend of boxing, and we've got an even busier one coming later in the week.
Absolutely packed this weekend.
Joke of a fight. We've got the Misfits with Chisora Wilder. You've got on Friday Matchroom with Pat Brown in Altrincham. On Sunday, you've got in the Olympia MVP with Dubois Harper. And also on Saturday, of course, you've got Lauren Price in Cardiff, which we will be in attendance for, and Fight Week this week. So probably skip a little bit over that in the preview because the content will be
Hopefully
coming.
have
But
plenty of interviews out. through
loads of
Fight
good
Week.
interviews and stuff for that. So
Imagine
exciting
when we
stuff there.
started this podcast, though, that someone would say the sentence to you, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have Chisora and Deontay Wilder fighting on Misfits."
Yeah, Chisora and Deontay Wilder are fighting with
That's
with
why I
KSI
laughed. Yeah.
as the promoter.
Both have primes in front of them,
Yeah. And also you got Vidal Riley. I will save it for the preview.
Yeah.
There's lots of great stuff. Nearly
You
got
can
excited
tell
there.
where the preview's going to go.
I nearly got
Yeah.
excited. So yeah, if you like the sound of that and an absolute bumper preview later in the week, then stick around, subscribe if you haven't already. And while I'm in the process of plugging things, I sat down with Rosie Eccles, former GB boxer, came out on Sunday. Well worth a listen if you haven't
Proper.
already. That's not me blowing my own trumpet.
But no, we do that for him.
Yeah, but
It's a
Rosie,
really good watch.
Rosie was unbelievable. She's got such a cool story. So check that one out. Do you both agree, or are you saying don't bother? It's rubbish.
It was a really good interview. Really enjoyed it.
So Sam has paid me £10 to say I really enjoyed it. No, it was phenomenal. And to think that it was filmed in this exact room, you did well there, mate. So well
Hiding
done.
it a bit, hidden a bit.
Is this now, what's that on your promotional side of things now? It's like your 8th or 9th thing that you're going to submit?
Yeah, I've got quite a lot. It's been the promotional wheel has been
Yeah.
turning. So if you like the sound of that, guys, check that out. I'll try and remember to put it in one of the cards on the YouTube or obviously Spotify for the audio version. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we'll see you all later in the week.
Punches chance. Punches Chance Podcast.